And welcome to all of our viewers on KIMA's Action News YouTube channel and to the second of our 2024 election candidate debates. I apologise that we are a little bit late starting. We were waiting for one of our candidates to arrive. I'm John Kennedy O'Connor and I will be the moderator for all of our 9 debates we have scheduled tonight. The candidates for State Legislative District 15, Representative Position 2. And they've been invited to answer your questions on the topics that matter to you ahead of casting your ballot this election. We will, of course, welcome your live comments while we're on the air. All you need to do to comment is just click the subscribe button and you will see yours and other comments on the right of your screen as they appear. However, we will not be putting any of your comments to the candidates during the debate. Now, we're pleased to welcome to the studio the Republican candidate, Rich Bright. Now, unfortunately, Mr. Bright's opponent, Jeremy Dufault, also a Republican candidate who previously represented the district until 2022, has declined the opportunity to take part in this debate. Mr. Dufault sent us this statement: "Thank you very much for the invitation, but I'm going to decline. I have 3 young children and am focusing on voter contact in the district with my campaign time." Now, we've allowed 1 hour for each debate with 2 candidates. Tonight, we will have a 30-minute broadcast. But the rules of this debate will be the same as any other where both candidates decide to participate. I will ask a question that the candidates have not seen or heard before, and the candidates will each have 2 minutes to answer, followed by 1 further minute each for rebuttals. Since Jeremy Dufault has declined to participate, Rich Bright will be given up to 3 minutes to answer each question uninterrupted. Now, Mr. Bright has also recorded a personal statement, which you will find on our YouTube channel. Rich, thank you very much indeed for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to meet you. And I'd like to start with the very first question. And the first question comes from an Action News viewer here in Yakima. District 15 has seen many changes in boundaries and the electorate since the last election. How has this changed your election strategy and your policy platform? And Mr. Bright, you have 3 minutes.
Well, the biggest change for me has been that I've been a campaign worker. I've been helping out and doing things for the party for years. And I was in the 13th district. So before the gerrymandering, my legislators were in Moses Lake and Cle Elum, far out of my area. I've always done a lot of volunteer work in the Yakima district or the Yakima County. So I was quite pleased that the 15th district now includes the 3 PCO districts of the one I live in. So I was very excited to get involved because there was no incumbent. I believe in the Reagan, rule of don't run against a solid Republican in the primary because, they're there and they're doing the work. But I don't believe Jeremy Dufault was in the race. So I put myself in there. I'm very excited about it. It's a whole new district. It may have been once that Jeremy was in the 15th district, but to be honest, this is a whole new district. Almost 20 or 30,000 different people are in there. How it's changed my, desire or my strategy has to been go down to the lower valley and look at areas that were not in the 15th before, because those are fresh areas and they don't have name recognition for my opponent. But for myself, I've just been out there going to every parade, shaking hands. We can't kiss babies anymore, but I'm out there doing everything I need to do to get out there. I used to think that politics was about great ideas, but really it's about money and getting eyeballs, paying money to get eyeballs on your name and your campaign. And that's been quite a challenge for me because most of my campaign has been out of my own pocket. And so I just keep working at it and keep working it. So yeah, it's been a different, the exponential learning curve has been pretty sharp.
Sure. Well, thank you very much, Rich. And our second question tonight also comes from an Action News viewer here in Yakima. What are your top 3 priorities? And if elected, how will you ensure you've made progress or indeed resolve those issues before the next election? And Mr. Bright, once again, you have up to 3 minutes.
So probably the biggest thing that I've been doing is talking to local legislators. The county commissioners, both in Benton County and Yakima County, are in the 15th district. And I find that there's similarities. Both Benton County and Yakima County commissioners have the same issues: unfunded mandates from Olympia. They are supposed to represent us throughout the state, but let's be honest, the people on the west side really don't represent us. There were 7 initiatives last year, and they passed a few in the legislature before they went to the people, and there's like 4 this year. That's a failing grade of the legislature out of Olympia. They don't represent us here in Eastern Washington. They don't represent us at all. Even if you're in Western Washington, I'm not sure how well they represent people. But so my goal has been to find out what those issues are. The first one is unfunded mandates from the Olympia, from the legislature and the Senate. The county puts together priorities based on the money that they have or potential monies coming in, and they have their priorities set, and then Olympia comes up with something that really doesn't work for us. And so we have to pull money from where we feel it should go and then throw it to these unfunded mandates. And that's not fair to us here in Eastern Washington. But at the same time, we can't just be an us and them. The legislature represents the entire state. So it's important that we work with those other legislators who are Democrats or who have different ideals or needs than we do. And we've got to work on those. You've got to reach across the aisle. You know, we want to brand people as a rhino or that because they work with the Democrats. But let's be honest, they have the majority. And if you don't work with them, no matter how good your idea is, it's not going to get past the legislature.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Rich. I do want to remind viewers that Jeremy Dufault, the other Republican candidate in this race, was invited multiple times to be with us for this debate, but he declined to participate. So moving on now to our third question tonight, which again comes from an Action News viewer here in Yakima. Washington's 15th district has three different distinct areas: the Snoqualmie Forest, the Wine Valley, and the Yakima Training Center, each with distinct characteristics and different problems. How will you create solutions that benefit all of the areas and not just one? And Mr. Bright, again, you have 3 minutes to answer.
I'm probably going to get a little flack from some of the other legislators who've been in office before. They may feel that they're more in tune with their constituents and they make local visits to find out what's really happening. If you think about this from a 365-day, this is a salaried job, so you work all year for your constituents. There is 100 days, 105 days in a budget year, and then only 60 days in the session for the non-budget year, and because of that, that's 200 plus days a year that you could certainly be in the district finding out what the issues are. Certainly the county commissioners are important. They're in the district, they're elected, and they're important. As far as the different areas, it is my goal to be in the district and visit these people, the local mayors, and have town halls where people can express their ideas or their needs, because we're not meeting them. And so we need to. How are we going to do that? Well, I worked at the training center for 17 years, so I got that one pretty good. I'm not a farmer, but I know lots of farmers. So I think it's important that we reach out to those people who are doing the work in the Valley and really represent them. These are calloused hands, and I didn't rent these, I earned these. And so I'm willing to roll up my sleeves and get out there and meet the people and really try to find out what their issues are. I have been in the Wine Valley a few times on my horse on winery tours, and that's a lot of fun. And I've talked to a lot of those folks. I've lived here 30 years in the Weenus Valley. I think I have a pretty good idea of who to talk to when these issues come up. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Rich. Appreciate that. Let's move on now to our fourth question. This question also comes from an Action News viewer here in Yakima. How will you help people that struggle to keep a roof over their heads while the price of everyday necessities are increasing? And Mr. Bright, once again, you have up to 3 minutes.
You know, I heard Kamala Harris's ads that people are gouging them. I don't see that as an issue. Food isn't more expensive because they're gouging us. It's more expensive because gas costs $4 a gallon. And that means everything that comes here from wherever it was grown, produced, made, costs more money to get here. I think, too, that energy is important. As long as those costs are down, it affects everything, cost. I think she even said that there was gouging landlords were gouging people. It's what the market will bear. The best thing the government can do is stay out of our business. Ronald Reagan said that the government's responsibility is to protect me from others. Where it messes up is when it starts to try to protect me from myself. And this kind of leadership is poor. We need to get down and help people be successful. This is the greatest country in the world, has the most incredible opportunities. If you'll just plug into them, stop making excuses. You can be successful if you just apply yourself. There are opportunities out there. I think that these rising costs are prevalent as long as we have a government that spends more than it takes in. You can't do that, and neither should the government. So by keeping government costs down, that'll have an effect. I think my car tabs tripled in the last 5 years. That affects everyday people. And these taxes that they want to put on sales tax or a food tax, all these different things that they keep proposing, they're not going to help these people. It's going to hurt them. And we need to figure ways to help them. And I think being in tune with their needs going down to the local level and talking to people and reducing the cost of energy. This state wants to get rid of natural gas, wants to get rid of propane. How ridiculous. They're so out of touch in Olympia. I'm hoping to get to Olympia and talk to people and bring some common sense issues. You know, the Constitution is an amazing document. I love this country as much as I respect that document. And we need to get back to teaching the people in Olympia that they don't work for themselves. We work, or correction, we don't work for ourselves. We work for the constituent. It's important to remember that. We work for them.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Rich. And I do want to remind everyone watching that you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, and that will give you access to the live chat to the right of your screen. And we hope you'll join in the discussion. But let's move on now to our fifth question tonight. And this question comes from an Action News viewer in our own neighborhood of Terrace Heights. In the statement that all Yakima voters received in their voter guide prior to the primary election, both candidates advocated for smaller government and more self-autonomy. How can you balance the needs of the wider community and not just give free rein to individuals? And Mr. Bright, once again, you're up to 3 minutes.
Again, I haven't seen these questions, so as I read them, I'm trying to think how to address these things. I find it kind of funny. If you ever watch the beauty contest, they say world peace and everyone should be fed and everyone should be loved. So it's pretty simple to say, yeah, let's lower government taxes, let's do these things. But how are we going to do that? That's the question. And what I'm finding really is that they're out of touch with us. How do we rein in these spending from the government? How do we have smaller government? Well, the first thing is if you've ever heard of the penny plan, we just simply say this year met all the needs. Next year, we're only going to increase it by 1%. And within a 5-6 year period, we'll be able to balance the budget. Hell, if you're Jay Inslee, I guess or Bob Ferguson, I guess you'll just spend more money. The more we save, the more they spend, so you don't get anywhere. We have got to figure out a way to take away the power from the executive branch, rein it in from the legislative branch, and flat out just tell these spendthrifts that have pie in the sky ideas to stop spending money we don't have. When a real emergency comes, how are we going to address that if we don't have something left in the bank? Everyone here knows what they're going to get paid this year, and they should, curtail their spending based on that. But the government doesn't seem to have that limit. The more we save or the more money is brought into the coffers of the state, they spend it all and then ask for more. That's not how we can operate as human beings, and that's not how responsible government should act. I'd like to see something, a budget that's ran by the people, and not so much. I do believe the initiative program is a terrible way to run government. You have it's a mob mentality. The legislature is supposed to be smart enough to figure out what we really need. They should look at the big picture, but they don't seem to. And so we have to do the initiative process to rein them in. And yet then they just keep asking for more. We have got to get a handle on that. And I don't know what the best answer is, but we've got to figure out a way to convince the Democrats on the other side of the hill to start being responsible. And I believe that our families need that. Families need that kind of responsibility.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Rich. I do want to once again remind viewers just joining us that Jeremy Dufault, the other Republican candidate in this race, was invited multiple times to be part of this debate, but he has declined to participate. But moving on now to our sixth question, which comes from an Action News viewer in Yakima County. In the race for this District 15 seat, there are only 2 white male Republican candidates on the ballot, both with military backgrounds. How can you reassure voters that whoever is elected, you can effectively represent the entire community that has a very wide and ethnically diverse population? Mr. Bright, you have up to 3 minutes to answer.
That's a difficult question. I've gone down to the Lower Valley and I've talked to people. They want responsible social government that is not, stays out of our bedroom. That's maybe not a white and black or person of color question, but one thing I have over my opponent is that I spent close to 15 years in Olympia doing lobbying unpaid for freedom issues and military issues. I've been to Washington, D.C. doing the same thing. I've written, 8 bills in Olympia and have had 5 of them get passed. And while I was in Iraq in 2008 and 9, the other 3 got passed. So I have law on the books that I've worked on, and I wasn't a legislator, so I couldn't pass them, but I certainly was there through the process. I love that process of discussing ideas, tossing them back and forth, amendments, finding the best way to solve problems by working together. as far as the person of color and being diverse, they claim that they gerrymandered this district to make it more diverse, but the only Hispanic senator in the Valley, Nikki Torres, was gerrymandered out. Her house is no longer in the 15th district. I think she's going to be in the 6th district or something. So they claimed that it was for diversity, but it wasn't. It was mainly just to give the Democrats, it was to take the 14th district, which predominantly is Yakima, all the way to Pasco, if you can believe that. They took that gerrymandering in an effort to make it more friendly for Democrats. And they can hide behind diversity all they want, but that's not the truth. I think it's important that we recognize that the people that are here in the Lower Valley come from all kinds of ethnic backgrounds. How do you reach them? You got to go down there and talk to them. I think I did a Hispanic radio down in Granger last week and had a great conversation with some of the people down there, asking them directly, what are your needs? How can Olympia better represent you? And I think that's the challenge, is we've got to get through the language barrier, go down, roll up our sleeves, take off our jacket, and talk to these people and find out what their needs are. Because right now, I don't think government has been as in tune to them. I also think that Hispanics don't normally vote as much as they should. Maybe they don't feel that they're not being represented, and so why bother? I don't know what the issue was. I've asked several Hispanic legislators, and they're not sure either. But I think we have to remind them that your one vote is as good as the president's. Everyone has one vote, and they need to start using it. And so I'm hoping that the people in the Lower Valley that are very diverse step up and tell us what they need and vote.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Rich. Let's move on now to question number 7. This question comes from an Action News viewer here in Yakima. If you are elected, you will spend most of your time in Olympia. How will you remain connected to the issues and challenges that your district faces? And once again, Mr. Bright, you have up to 3 minutes to answer.
Okay, thank you. So, let's break this down to the founding fathers. The way that the government operates in D.C. is ridiculous. You were only supposed to have a regular job, live in your community, and travel across the country to either Philadelphia or now Washington, D.C., and it was a part-time job. You weren't paid as much. It paid for your expenses for travel, but now these people these politicians that are out of touch live pretty exorbitant lives, pretty expensive, and they stay in the district. And I think that's wrong. I think it's the same in Olympia. We should, go down there for the session, spend the 60 days in the first session, and then come back to the valley where we live, where we have family. I also have horses, and so I'm going to pay a small fortune to have someone watch my horses while I'm out of the district. But it is my intent to be back in my district. And I love my community. I've done a lot of volunteer work in Sela. So even though I may go to Olympia part of the year, it's my intent to be back those other 200 days back in the district and meeting with local people and local leaders. I think that's key. I remember while trying to work on some bills, it was almost impossible to find anyone in the district that would talk to you except during the time that they campaign. We all know the number one job of all politicians is to get reelected. And so while they're trying to do that, they're more in tune to the local issues and the people. And once they're there, they're untouchable. They live outside of what we live a life of. And I think that's one of the problems in DC for sure. And it's certainly a problem in Olympia. I mean, they voted to get rid of natural gas and propane. How are you going to live if that's your only form of heat? These legislators are not in tune with us, and they need to get out of their ivory towers and come down and really meet the real people that they claim to represent. It is my intent to be in the district and represent those people the best way that I know how. So,
well, thank you very much indeed, Rich. I do want to remind viewers just joining us that Jeremy Dufault, the other Republican candidate in this race, was invited multiple times to be part of this debate. However, he has declined to participate. We're moving on now to our question number 8, which comes from an Action News viewer in Yakima. Do you believe there has been a degradation in politicians' behaviour, and how do you make sure you remain above personality politics? And Mr. Bright, you have up to 3 minutes to answer.
There's no doubt. I mean, when you look at, I remember I saw a joke where they put together, how many felonies they had, how many arrests they had, and they said, was it a football team or was it the U.S. Congress? And it turns out it's the U.S. Congress. These people don't live in our world. They live this this crazy life where they're so far removed from us. I'd like to see like a question from Pelosi. Hey, how much does a loaf of bread cost? What does a gallon of gas cost where you live? They don't know because they're so removed, and they're kind of like the emperor's is wearing no clothes. No one wants to tell them the truth, and they don't care, I don't believe. So how will I remain above that? Just being me. I'm not what I am exactly what I say, and I'm going to throw my opponent under the bus a little bit. My opponent gave money to Bob Ferguson 12 times. He worked for for Patty Murray's campaign. And he also was a delegate, one of 3 national delegates from Washington to the Obama National Convention in North Carolina when Obama was running. And he gave money to him and Liv Cheney. And then when he decides, I want to run to be here where I live, he decides to put an R by his name and start giving money to Republicans. That's not genuine. That's not the truth. What you see right now in this monkey suit is exactly what I am. I'm Rich Bright, and I'm running to represent the people in my district. I have no desire for higher office. My daughter was just graduated last year from Sela High School. I was involved with her throughout all her years in school, and I will continue to stay involved. Even though it's not paid, I don't care. And my daughter's not there anymore, but I'm going to still be here. I'm a Rich Bright. I live here. So I'm your neighbor.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Rich. Now, our next question comes from an Action News viewer actually in our neighbourhood in Terraced Heights. Do you worry for your personal safety and that of your family? And in a public race, how do you protect them from the spotlight and potential dangers? Mr. Bright, once again, you have up to 3 minutes.
All right, well, it's not a Second Amendment thing, but I'm no wallflower, and I'm not afraid of the decisions I make. I'm a rough and tumble guy. I spent 26 years in the Army. I went to Desert Storm and 2 other times in Iraq. I thought I'd get out of doing those kind of adventures, and I joined the National Guard, and they sent me 2 more times. And so I'm not afraid of that. I'm willing to defend myself in any way I need. My daughter is pretty self-sufficient. She lives in Moses Lake. I don't know about that, but it is what it is. I have no fear of the public or my safety. I'm not a weak person. I'm a strong person, and I believe in the Second Amendment when needed to defend myself. So I'm not afraid of any personal things. I'm going to be honest about everything I do. So why would anybody want to harm me or my family?
Well, thank you very much indeed, Rich. Now, our final question in this election candidate debates comes from an Action News viewer here in Yakima. Will you accept the result of this election, no matter what the outcome? Mr. Bright, once again, you go up to 3 minutes.
Well, that's more of that national question. They want to get Trump to be able to say, yeah, I'll accept it. I mean, maybe I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I definitely say that some of the numbers during the 2020 election some numbers didn't add up. They didn't make a lot of sense. And I think that we are in trouble as a nation when we have no faith in the electoral process. If we don't have a clear, transparent election any more than we had the last time, I think there's some folks out there that are pretty upset, and they don't accept the numbers. But it's not just what do they call them? Election deniers. I mean, Pelosi and Hillary didn't accept the 2016 election, and they're still saying that Trump didn't win. And so they don't have the grace or I guess the feeling to accept what happens in an election. We want people to vote. We want them to go to the election. We want them to go to the ballot box, put in their ballot, and know that their vote counts. Someone made the term, well, there was only just a few illegal votes. Yeah, but what if it was your vote? What if it's your vote that got overrode by an illegal vote? That's important. We believe in the precepts that everyone's vote counts. Each person gets one vote, and they have as much power and movement of the polls as anybody else. So I will accept it, certainly. I don't have a fear of Washington elections. We're both got ours by our name, so I can't see anybody helping either one of us from that ilk, but maybe, I don't know. But I love this country, and I believe that when we exchange power peacefully, that is one of the most important precepts of the Constitution and our system, is a belief that my vote got in there and it counts as much as the richest person or the poorest person. We all get one chance. And if that isn't being respected, then we've got some issues and we're going to have to fix them. So we must have clean, transparent elections. And Charles Ross is the auditor here in Yakima. He's a great guy. I don't think that he would allow anything like that here in Seattle. I don't know. I hope not. I hope it's the right way. I hope it's clean.
Well, thanks so much, very much, Rich. And that's all of our time for our second 2024 election candidate debate. I want to thank Rich Bright very sincerely for being with us tonight.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And thank you for taking our viewers' questions. I want to thank you for watching and for all of your questions and comments. Once again, we are sorry that the other Republican candidate, Jeremy Defoe, declined our invitation to debate with his opponent, but we hope you have found this discussion helpful in making up your mind for the upcoming election in this race. Now, our next debate is tomorrow, Tuesday, October 15th at 7 p.m, when the candidates for Yakima County Commissioner District 3 will be invited to join us here in the KIMA Action News studio. We'll once again be live on our YouTube channel at 7 p.m. We hope you'll join us tomorrow. Good night.
Apologize for being late, too.